Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. This is the Real Impact Series, Daily Inspiration with Dennis Henson, back with us again here this month of February, where we are focusing our attention this month on Abraham Lincoln. Dennis, welcome back. It's great to have you with us to talk about, I guess, he probably would not accept the accolade, but we're talking about a great man, are we not?
We are one of the greatest presidents this country's had. Um, what we're actually talking about how he got there,
Yeah.
which was quite an amazing journey.
Yeah.
That's what the story is all about.
Yeah, we kind of have coined, or not coined the phrase, we kind of use the phrase divine providence to describe how he got to the presidency, a series of events. I do not believe in coincidence, but I do believe in coincidence, things that coincide, that happen. And that's what happened with Abraham Lincoln. And we're going to pick up the story where he is the story picks up at New Salem in 1831.
New Salem, 1831. Once the flatboat crew returned from New Orleans, Offutt fulfilled his pledge and opened the New Salem General Store. Lincoln was hired as the store's clerk and allowed to sleep in the back room. The town's residents were soon being entertained with yarns and funny jokes. In a short time, Abe was a town favorite, as the word spread of his humor, knowledge, and honesty. Honest Abe, as he was called, enjoyed the freedom his new job gave him to read and study English grammar. During this time, he engaged the local school teacher to help him with his writing and speaking skills. At his teacher's urging, Lincoln joined the New Salem Debating Society. There, he gave his first public speech and met many influential people. Impressed with what they heard, the townspeople convinced Lincoln to enter the Illinois General Assembly race. Although Abe was staying busy, the general store was losing money, and panic spread when Chief Blackhawk of the Sauk tribe and several hundred braves crossed the Mississippi into Illinois without warning. So the state's governor declared that males between 18 and 45 were obligated to enlist in a militia. When the call came, with the store failing, Offutt allowed Lincoln to enlist. The Army assigned Abraham to a battalion containing a number of his friends from New Salem. So when his company chose a captain, they picked Lincoln by a large majority. Although he saw no action, he demonstrated bravery and was highly respected. After his military discharge, he returned home and resumed his race for the General Assembly. Though his run was unsuccessful, he met many citizens throughout Illinois, some of whom would later help elect him to the legislature. Despite losing his first election, his enthusiasm for politics grew after he received 277 of New Salem's 300 votes.
You know, that's interesting. His first, shall we say, elective office was in the military until he tried again in politics. It's amazing.
It is, and the story of him being in the military is an entirely different. I mean, it's a good story, but there just wasn't room for it inside this story, and it didn't have anything to do with what the point I was trying to make. But if you want to go back and read about it, he was a very successful military leader, and he demonstrated bravery. So that's a good story to go back and check out.
Absolutely. I find it interesting. You had mentioned in our last program that are upwards of now 19,000 books about Abraham Lincoln, roughly. I'm curious, of those, how many have you read offhand?
Well, I haven't read any of them from cover to cover. I was looking for. I came in one day. The reason that Lincoln was in the book in the first place was because I heard that he had failed 16 or 17 times before he actually succeeded in becoming the president. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I wrote a short story, which was about a page and a half. And I was eliminating stories. Right. So I came in and I had on my daily list to take the Lincoln story out of the book. Well, before I did, I thought, well, let me just do a little bit more research. And so I searched Google and I searched YouTube, and I found one of these stories where I thought, wow, if that hadn't happened, he wouldn't be president. We wouldn't know the name Lincoln. And I thought, well, if I could find another one or two like that, which was highly unlikely, maybe I could put the story in. So then I found another one, and another one, and another one,
Wow.
and another one. And so when you get to the end of the story, there are 20. What if, what are the chances that this and 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 it was 20 different things. What are the chances that all of those things would line up and he'd become president? Well, the chances are 1 in 10 trillion. I mean, you couldn't even figure the odds on all of those happening. So I read a lot from a lot of different books, and I read a lot of things that were really interesting, but they were not what I was looking for. What I was looking for is what could have derailed him on the way. And I put all those that I found, but there were probably more. I just ran out of time. I mean, these are the ones that I was able to find, but if you dug deeper, you could probably find several more.
Mm-hmm. And how old was he? What age did he reach before he was killed?
He wasn't very old. I think he was 56. He was in his 50s. He was not a very old man.
And am I correct? He was still president at that time, at the time of his assassination.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and he should have had a bodyguard, but he was doing something else.
Gee, smacks of a conspiracy, but we won't go there. I want to ask you a little bit about the comparisons, if you will. I mean, granted, we have talked about I've used the domino theory and divine providence and so forth. And I think about the choices that you and I have made, and I've made this comment on many occasions on this program that I and my guest, in this case you, my co-host, we have made choices throughout our entire lives. Now, it may not seem like it as a child that any of those choices have brought us right here, but my personal belief is that even those choices that we made as a child have brought us right here doing what we are doing right now, because it was part of the process that has brought us here. However, you don't see it other than in hindsight, because hindsight is 2020.
Right.
And yet there are great inspirational examples within looking at hindsight, if you will, that we're here promoting here on this program, the Real Impact series here on Tell Me Your Story. Do you ever look back on your life and think about some of those choices that you have made and think, gee, if I hadn't done that, because as we're talking about Abraham Lincoln, it's like you said, gee, if he hadn't done that, or if this person hadn't done that, we wouldn't know the name. Whereas if you hadn't done this and that and the other, we wouldn't be talking your name, Dennis Henson.
Yes, I've thought of that quite often. There's several places in my life where I had decisions that I had to make. And sometimes I'll go back and think, wow, I could have been the band director at Georgia Tech, and a lot of people would have known. It would have been a lot of fun. We would have had a good band. And then I think, well, but if I'd done that, I wouldn't be married to my lovely wife. I wouldn't have written this book. I wouldn't have had all the wonderful students that I've had in real estate investing and in business. So, I have no regrets. I'm happy with where I am. And I was listening to Napoleon Hill. This whole week I've been listening about Napoleon Hill. And someone said that the person that brought Napoleon in and set him down and put him on the track to find out what made people successful Carnegie.
Mm.
He ended up making about 50 millionaires. But Napoleon Hill has made 1 million and will probably make 1 million more. So I'm writing a story about Napoleon Hill called A Million Millionaires. Isn't that amazing how one person could have such a tremendous impact?
Mm.
He knew, I've listened to his speeches, he knew that after he was gone, that he would continue to have an impact in the future. And I feel the same way. I feel like long after I'm gone, my book is going to catch on and it's going to help a lot of people through a lot of things. I was working on Real Impact 2 and 3 today, putting the testimonials in. And some of them just almost brought tears to my eyes because the people were saying, wow, this is just what I needed. This is absolutely what I needed at this time. And that's going to happen a lot more to a lot more people. It's, the book's going to end up in their hand. It's going to change the course of their life. So I'm excited about that. Wouldn't change that.
And that's a subject I'm sure one of the stories in Real Impact will address, legacy, and the legacy that we will leave behind. I mean, it's if we're doing the kind of work that, for example, you and I are doing in particular, yeah, we're going to leave quite a legacy behind, and I'm kind of excited about that because I don't look at it exclusively as mine. I look at it as my father's legacy that he's leaving through me because I talk about him a lot on my program. Um, and I think that's exciting. And like I said, we'll probably get there. What we're going to do is take a quick little break here. We're going to pause just for a moment, and we're going to remind you that you are listening to Tell Me Your Story, the Real Impact series, Real Impact Daily Inspiration, realimpactbook.com. Go there, scroll to the bottom, click on Podcast Attendee, get your free ebook, and then I would highly encourage you to pick up a copy, purchase a copy of the hardcover or paperback or Kindle, unless, of course, you have unlimited Kindle, then you can get it for free. And we hope that you will as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. We are continuing here on Tell Me Your Story with Dennis Henson. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. He is my co-host, and we are talking about this month, Abraham Lincoln, the entire month of February. This was the month he was born. What date was he born? Do you recall, Dennis?
I believe it's the 12th.
12th, right before Valentine's Day on the 14th. Wonderful. I know, too, that the state of Arizona became a state on the 14th of February, 2 days following his birthday. We're going to continue on and listen to more in regards to Abraham Lincoln. And the next stretch, if you will, has to do with the year
1833. With the election over and out of work, Lincoln searched for new opportunities. But when many things he attempted failed, the people of New Salem appointed him their postmaster. And when the post office was moved to another town, he was tapped to be deputy to the county surveyor. Lincoln had strong desire to be successful at something. He wasn't sure what it was, and though he loved politics, he hesitated to enter for his lack of education and contacts. At that point, he described himself as a piece of floating driftwood. While strongly considering opening a blacksmith shop, an acquaintance offered to sell him a fully furnished general store on credit. The deal sounded too good to pass up, so Lincoln accepted the offer. Running his new store gave him ample time to do his favorite thing, reading.
That was a real key. I have to tell you, Dennis, that as a kid growing up, I wish I had read better because I would have read a whole lot more. And when I got sucked into a story, I couldn't put it down. I read a book until 3 o'clock in the morning once, and it wasn't easy for me because you're talking about one of those thick paperback books. And then I got to hold the book and then my magnifying glass and the balancing act. I know he didn't have to deal with that. But again, it just reiterates how ravenous a reader he was.
Can we play a little bit more? Because this is part of that next miracle. If he hadn't have gotten this this opportunity to purchase the store for nothing down, just on a credit, this next little thing wouldn't have happened, and he wouldn't be president.
Then let's move on to the old barrel.
The old barrel. Many days were spent sitting under a tree near the store's entrance, studying English grammar and reading anything he could borrow from his customers. He consumed newspapers, textbooks, and classics like the works of Shakespeare and the poems of Robert Burns. Although he enjoyed his time, poor sales were pulling him into debt. In fact, except for 50 cents in his pocket, he was broke. One morning, while sitting under that tree, his eyes were drawn to an approaching covered wagon. The driver pulled up in front of him and steadied his horses. Jumping down, he walked toward Lincoln and exclaimed, "This pioneer life is not for me, and I'm taking my family back east. My wagon is overloaded. Will you take a look inside to see if there's anything you might want?" Since Abe had no money, he was hesitant and told the man he wasn't interested, but the driver was insistent. "What about this barrel? You can use it to store things. I'll let you have it for 4 bits, 50 cents. Could you take it off my hands?" Now, Lincoln didn't need another barrel. Most of his store's supplies arrived in barrels. Yet he reached in his pocket and handed the man his last penny. Bidding the traveler farewell, he placed the old relic in a back corner and forgot about it. After several months, he found a use for the barrel, and once he removed the top, he noticed it wasn't empty. Dumping the contents on the floor, Abraham was surprised when something heavy fell out. He looked more closely. There on the floor, partially covered by debris, lay a complete set of Blackstone's commentaries. These were Sir William Blackstone's 18th century essays on the common law of England. Lincoln wasted no time putting those books to use and spent the remainder of the summer consuming their pages. The more he read, the more interested he became, saying, "Never in my whole life was my mind so thoroughly absorbed. I read until I devoured them." Even before completing the essays, he started visiting courthouses and observing trials. Once he'd had a glimpse of those hearings, Abraham Lincoln realized his search for a profession had ended. And for the first time, he envisioned himself as an attorney. Lincoln then committed he'd do whatever it took to accomplish that goal. Who knows if this story of the barrel is true? A much older Lincoln often told it using the third person. I merely wrote what his listeners must have surmised. Yet some historians think it has merit. I know Lincoln had access to Blackstone's commentaries. It is irrelevant whether he got them from a farmer or his mentor and future business partner, John T. Stuart. But that he used them as the first step toward a highly successful legal career is an acknowledged fact.
Wow. And Dennis, it's remarkable. And I don't know about this, but I don't know if the bar even existed back when Lincoln.
Yes.
It did. Okay. So obviously he took the bar, having probably read these commentaries to start with, which started him on the way to his law career.
Well, there was a sentence right there where it said he resolved to do whatever it took to pass the bar and become an attorney. And it wasn't easy. I mean, it was a very difficult thing for someone who had an education, who'd been through college, who knew they were going to be an attorney for a majority of their life. But here was Lincoln, who just decided that he was going to do it. And he did it. That's the kind of commitment and will that proves you can do anything. Anybody can do anything. If Lincoln, with his background, could pass the bar and become probably the second most respected attorney in the entire state and eventually the president. It's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
It truly is. And the thing that is a wonderful example for all of us today is what you've just stated, of course, that there, and I get examples from different documentaries that I have seen of people in our day and age who grew up in similar or maybe even not quite the lesser of circumstances as Abraham Lincoln, because obviously back then they didn't have a lot of what we have today. And yet they manage, in a manner of speaking, despite all odds, to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and accomplish things that you never thought they would, but they had that determination, just like Lincoln had. You could even call it the Lincoln determination.
There's, if you go to realimpactbook.com, the very first tab says The Mystery of the Lamp.
Mm-hmm.
And you should actually play that. It's a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But it explains how powerful this is, how powerful it is to have a burning desire and a commitment to do so. You can do anything. And that little, the mystery of the lamp really lays that out in great detail and kind of pulls you in and makes you want to learn more about it. So I suggest that anybody's listening in, go and listen to that, and then maybe we'll feature it on a future program.
Absolutely. We'd love to do that. That would be wonderful to do. Please go to realimpactbook.com, scroll to the bottom, click on podcast attendee and get your free ebook copy. But also listen to that little audio, just a couple of minutes long, about Aladdin's lamp. One of the things I wanted to say too, Dennis, is you and I were both human. And every once in a while, we will get hit by the downer syndrome. Something's going on, and we're not feeling real motivated. We're not feeling real inspired. But I would venture that for you, because you have surrounded yourself, this is part of what I talk about in my book, Choices, where, you need to match your personal input to your choice, where you have surrounded yourself with inspiration from so many different sources, so many different people, whether it's books, whether it's audio, video, maybe documentaries on these people, and so forth, that are uplifting. And because I find myself every once in a while getting hit with that doubt syndrome, if you will, and thank goodness they're fleeting. They're fleeting moments. They come and they go. And I think they're getting smaller. At least I'd like to think they're getting smaller in terms of time. And then when I talk with you on on the day that we put these programs together, and I get buoyed up again, I'm going, okay, listen to what's being said there, whether it's from the Audible or from Dennis. You can do whatever you want to do. You're still alive. You still got a heartbeat. You got blood flowing through your veins. You got air going in and out of your lungs and so forth. And you got ideas flowing through your head. And I do. I think the one thing that really strikes me more than anything else about all of that is that I do my best to be anticipatory, but not have expectations, meaning I am not going to say this is the way that it is supposed to look, because odds are it's never going to look that way. But if I'm anticipating and I'm doing the work, shall we say, then anything is possible, and putting it out there. So I have to tell you, folks, this program, it's good for me too. I've said it before, this is my therapy, Dennis, my therapy.
Well, there's an antidote for the Downer syndrome, and that's the G vitamin. I think we may have mentioned that before, but the G vitamin will absolutely, it's like putting water to dilute acid, or even better, sparkling water, because it has alkaline.
Mm-hmm.
The G vitamin lowers your blood pressure, improves your mood, makes you sleep better. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Makes you healthy, fights cancer. And the G vitamin is free, and you don't even have to take it. It's instant. It's just like that. It's called gratitude.
Yeah.
So you can't be being thankful for your wife and your family and your dog and your home that, if you're in California and your home's not burned to the ground, you should be just thinking, oh, thank God, I'm so happy because I still have a place to go, I have clothes to wear, I can drive my car. So, if you can walk, if you can breathe, if you can see, if you can feel, if you can think, all of those things are things to be grateful for. If you have an income, it's what you concentrate on. If you concentrate, everybody's got bad things in their life.
Yeah.
Concentrate on them, you're going to feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You concentrate on the things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
You can't, because it's like being on the road in the car. The car won't go in two directions at once. It'll only go in one.
Right.
So you get to choose which way you want to drive. Do you want to drive to happy? One of the quotes in the book says, if you think you're happy, you're happy.
I like that. That's a good barometer.
It's true.
And it's easy.
Yeah, that's true. And Lincoln said, a fella's just about as happy as he makes up his mind to be.
Yeah.
Really powerful. And it's from Abraham Lincoln. Kind of fits into our theme this month.
Absolutely. By the way, there's another quote that is attributed to Abraham Lincoln. And I say it quite often to folks because it's funny. And that is Abraham Lincoln, it is said, never trust anything you read on the internet. Well, he was a man who was ahead of his time. We are ahead of our time in one sense. We're going to take a quick pause here and remind you this is Tell Me Your Story, the Real Impact series. We hope you'll go to realimpactbook.com, scroll down to the bottom, and click on Podcast Attendee to get your free ebook, as well as get a copy for yourself. Order one, hardcover, which would be really nice to have, or a paperback. Either way, you can also at Unlimited Kindle get it for free. Otherwise, please avail yourself and listen to that little story about Aladdin's lamp as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome back to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan with Dennis Henson here on Tell Me Your Story, the Real Impact series, Real Impact Daily Inspirations, what we're talking about. But more importantly, more focused, we could say, we are talking about Abraham Lincoln. And am I correct? The 16th president?
Yes.
16th. Okay, good. Trying to keep the numbers correct because now we're in the 40s here in the 21st century. We're going to talk now a little bit about what we touched upon a little earlier in regards to Abraham Lincoln and his legal career.
The law. The same year Lincoln decided to become an attorney, 1834, he was elected to the Illinois General Assembly. A short time later, Springfield attorney John T. Stewart befriended him and offered him use of his law library. At 23, Lincoln was still living in New Salem and managing his general store. What free time he had, he spent preparing to take the multiple steps required to pass the Illinois bar. Purchasing a book of legal forms, he drew up mortgages, deeds, and other documents for his friends at no charge. He even argued a few minor cases with Stewart's advice and encouragement. He often traveled 20 miles to his friend's office to retrieve and return law books. In 1836, his diligence paid off, and he was granted a license to practice law. The following year, the Illinois Supreme Court awarded him admission to the state bar. Then Mr. Lincoln started a career that he would pursue for the remainder of his life. He was no longer a floating piece of driftwood. Once the Illinois legislature adjourned, Lincoln saw little future in New Salem for his legal work or his political ambitions. Yet Springfield offered both. He was well known for his successful efforts to make that city the new state capital. So on a borrowed horse and with everything he owned in 2 saddlebags, Abraham Lincoln departed the city that gave him his political start. He boarded with friends for the next 4 years or stayed in country inns and farmhouses. Lincoln was 28 when he opened a law office with Stewart and became a circuit judge. His responsibilities required him to travel throughout Illinois, visiting numerous cities and courts. For months he would journey with his clothes and toiletries in his saddlebag, and he always carried a few books for his entertainment on those long rides. In addition to his law career, Lincoln continued in politics and used his travels to broaden his base. Within a few years, he was earning between $1,200 and $1,500 a year when the state's governor was only receiving $1,200. In 1841, Stuart and Lincoln dissolved a partnership that had handled more than 700 cases. But another door opened when the top lawyer in Illinois, Stephen Logan, offered him a partnership. Upon accepting this position, his status as an attorney was significantly elevated. During those 2 years, Abraham Lincoln was introduced to and represented the most influential leaders in Illinois and the surrounding states.
Extraordinary how he actually teamed up with someone else to start their own law firm.
Yes, and we were speaking about the people whose homes were burned and had nothing. Did you notice there that when Lincoln moved, everything he owned was in his saddlebags, and he was on a borrowed horse? He had nothing. And then a few years later, just a few years, several years later, he was the top attorney in Illinois, making more than the governor. That's how quickly things can change for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fantastic that we have that ability.
Yes.
But we somehow have been told that we can't or that we don't along the way. And I think one of the most important elements to really get out of our system is this whole aspect of victimhood. I mean, I don't hear anything in these stories about Abraham Lincoln where he blamed anybody for his circumstances. He knew who he was, he knew where he was, he knew what he was about, and even more importantly, he knew what he wanted and went after it. He did whatever it took, as was quoted earlier.
That's the master key to riches. If you know what you want, you see, if you have a burning desire to do something that really doesn't, as long as it's illegal, it doesn't matter what it is, or I guess it's illegal. It's the master key to riches. It's walking towards something important every day, taking a step. That's why this book is so powerful. You have to decide what you want before you can use the book. Like the story of Aladdin. Aladdin found out, well, if you rub this lamp, genie comes out and the genie says, what do you want? Well, until Aladdin said, I want this, he got nothing. Nothing. Okay. Well, that's why the book parallels, that's why the story parallels life. Yeah. You got to know what you want before you can get anything.
Yeah.
And the book keeps you on track because the way the process works is every day you're going to read something that moves you a step closer to your goal. But what it's really doing is reminding you every day what your goal is. It's like the rudder on a boat. If you don't have a rudder on your boat, you're going to end up somewhere. What does Yogi Berra said? Yeah, you're going to end up somewhere.
Well, he says, wherever you are, there you are. Something like that, something along those lines. Yeah, love Yogi Berra's quotes. Amazing stuff. Yeah.
This morning, but I can't remember what it was. But
yeah.
It was something like if you don't know where you're going, who knows when you'll get there.
Well, there is a great quote, something along those lines of, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm making good time. We're here on Tell Me Your Story, and this is the series Real Impact, and we certainly hope that you will take time to listen to or read the stories. Make it a daily habit. And Dennis, you've said this time and time again on this program. That is the key. One of the big keys is it doesn't have to be, I'm going to spend the next 2 hours reading from War and Peace. No, we're not. Take 2 minutes to read one of these stories, or go in, read several of the quotes that are in the middle of the book, or one of the poems that's in the middle of the book, and take it in. Or I like, my favorite word to use from Stranger in a Strange Land is grok it. Assimilate it into every cell of your being, and that's really what it takes to make that transformation, which to me is. Jesus once told his disciples about the miracles. They wanted him to teach. They wanted him to teach them the miracles that he was doing, and he said, "Sure, I can teach you, but that's nothing compared to what you guys are going to do." And I interpret that as saying that the ultimate miracle that we can perform is to transform our lives. And that's what we're talking about here, transforming our lives. We've talked about Sylvester Stallone and Zig Ziglar and Walt Disney. And of course, now we're talking about Abraham Lincoln, who was constantly transforming his life, wasn't he?
Absolutely. Yes. His whole life was huge steps in the direction, and steps that no one would have ever believed that he'd be able to take, even just before the presidential election. After he won the convention, no one gave him a chance. He even himself doubted that he could become the president, because all the cards were stacked against him. And there were only 30-something states, I think there were 33 at the time, and 10 of them wouldn't even put him on the ballot. So he was only on the ballot in 23 states, yet he won by a landslide. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I know, too, there are those who feel that the only way to truly succeed is, you've got to, just outdo the other person. Where you take a look at sports, for example. In most every single sport, you only have to win by one, not 100 or 1,000. You only have to win by one. And yet there are people out there that are just, trying to beat everybody down in order to succeed. And I don't hear anything like that from the stories that we've talked about, where any of these people went after their competition or the protagonist. They didn't go after them. They stayed focused on what their goal was. And to me, that's also very important to think about.
That's true. That's true. They were focused on where they were going, and let everybody else do whatever they needed to do. So they were not trying to take steps by stepping on top of other people.
Yeah.
They were just trying to take steps to overcome the obstacles that nature put in front of them.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, folks, stay tuned. We've got more coming here on Tell Me Your Story, the Real Impact series with Dennis Henson and yours truly, Richard Dugan. This is Tell Me Your Story. Welcome back to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, Dennis Henson, my co-host, and we are talking about the Real Impact Daily Inspiration Series. So go to realimpactbook.com. Realimpactbook.com will be linked to that website here on these programs on the podcast, as well as the video cast. And we hope that you will get yourself a free copy by going to realimpactbook.com. Scroll to the bottom, click on the podcast attendee, and put in the information. You will not be solicited for anything. All you'll receive is the link to download your free ebook. Get a copy if you'd like. We'd love to get that in the hands of people. As a matter of fact, Dennis, you have a program, so to speak. You have a vision, if you will, of putting together a whole bunch of these books and making them available to a lot of people down the road here, in terms of people helping through like a GoFundMe or some type of an account that people can support the work that you're doing through.
Yes, if you go to realimpact.com and look on your left, near the bottom, there's a link that says Help the Children. And you can just click on that, and there's a GoFundMe program there, and you can donate $1 or $5 or $10. The books are like $39. You can donate for a book or 10 books or 1,000 books or whatever. And this is not one of those charities where the president makes $1 million. Every penny goes toward purchasing a book to put into a library in a disadvantaged community or a school that doesn't have a budget to be able to fill their libraries. So all of these books are for continuing education and to aid in child literacy. So if you want to donate to that, I would really appreciate that. And I feel like you're going to help change some people's lives by doing that. Yeah. And you'll see why after you read the ebook. You know, the reason we're giving you the ebook is, first of all, it's going to help you. But in order for you to make the formula work, you're going to see very quickly, you have to hold the book in your hand. So you're going to have to get at least a paperback, and you're probably going to look at it and say, oh, I know 2 or 3 people that I can give this book to. So the deluxe edition is one where if you want to give somebody something really, really nice, give them the deluxe edition. Or if you just want to help them out, you give them the paperback. Yeah. Or even I don't care if you take the ebook and forward it to all of your friends. I don't care. I'm giving it away.
Yeah.
Because the more, well, it's like Zig Ziglar said, the more people you can help get what they want, the more you're going to get what you want. So that quote's in the book too, in the Zig Ziglar story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are here talking about Abraham Lincoln here on this series of programs, and we're going to continue doing that as we continue here on the series entitled, I've said this before, I'll say it again, Real Impact, Daily Inspiration. And we want you to continue to stay with us as we talk more with Dennis Henson about this wonderful opportunity for you to change the world. That's what I'm here to do, folks, change the world. As a kid, I was told that you don't want to choose that because it's real big. You don't want to go that big. Well, I'm now 64, almost 65. I want to go that big, okay? I want to change the world for the better for everybody. And it is possible. If it's possible for someone like Abraham Lincoln to become president of the United States with all the odds against him, please, then you can change the world. Join Dennis by going to that website, realimpactbook.com, and giving what you can. And you don't have to give a lot, because if a lot of people give a little, hey, it all adds up. That's what I say. Every little bit helps. Get a copy of the book, spread it around, share it, share that ebook. We hope that you'll do that. Dennis, before we wrap things up here on this particular edition, and we're going to continue talking more about Abraham Lincoln here in the month of February, I want to give you the last couple of minutes here just to share from your heart and your inspiration about the message, the overall message that you want people to glean from these stories about the 16th president of the United States who might not have ever been.
Well, the underlying theme for all of the stories, not just this one, is that we're talking about a person who had a burning desire. And that's really the master key to riches that Napoleon Hill talked about. In addition to that, they had faith, hope, they had a strong will, but most of all, they were willing to take action. And you can do the same thing. The first thing you have to do, and the reason the book was written was to help you. There's a little place in the front of the book that says how to use this book. And then it says the magic formula. If you would take that magic formula, it's going to encourage you to decide, what is it you want to do? Who do you want to become? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? And once you've decided that, you've started a little fire. But you've got to put kindling on the fire and give it oxygen so that it becomes a burning desire. Once you can create a burning desire, then no one can stop you. You just need to move in that direction. The book is set up in such a way to remind you day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, what is the direction that you want to go in? Who is it you want to become? Like when Lincoln went into the courtroom and saw the trials happening, he said, I'm home. This is what I was meant to be. I'll do whatever it takes to become an attorney. Once he said that, he had the burning desire, he had the direction, and he moved mountains. He went from being totally broke and having everything in a couple of bags and traveling on a borrowed horse to making more money than the governor of the state in just a couple of years. That's what can happen to you. It's happened to millions of people, and it can happen to you. And this book is the shortest distance between where you are and where you want to be. So take advantage of it. Do it. And then one day you're going to want to get in touch with me like so many people do and say, Dennis, you just changed my life. I love to hear that. And by the way, if you do like the book, please go to Amazon and leave a review. That really helps because it helps other people see, hey, this is a good book. Read what the people are saying. I have over 100 reviews and a 5-star rating. Do you know how hard that is?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're an author, it's very, very difficult. You got to have a really powerful book to get more than 100 reviews. Just to get the reviews is one thing, but to still have 5 stars, that means it's a pretty good book. So go there, leave a nice review so that other people can take advantage of it, even if you don't.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Tell Me Your Story, the Real Impact edition, and we hope that you will join us again. And we'll continue here in the month of February with, of course, the story of Abraham Lincoln. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love Talal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Mike, you left too soon. To my friend Doug, I'll see you on the other side. To my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.